Hello and welcome back to Homebrew EDH, where I take you through my personal commander decks, how they work, and how they win. This episode is Kydele, Chosen of Krufix, and Tormod the Desecrator. I built this deck purely because I don't own a Tasigur the Golden Fang yet. Once I do, this deck might receive some modifications, but until then, this is a graveyard-focused land matters deck that also has Villainous Wealth built into the theme. So with that, let's get into the episode. I got this idea purely because I pulled a Slogurk the Overslime out of my Midnight Hunt unboxing, which will be on the end screen of this video if you want to go see what else I pulled from that box. All of the good stuff got sold, as is what I normally do, so the meh stuff stuck around. Slogurk was not worth really anything, was the only reason this deck was even built in the first place. That's where the idea came from. He is 1 green-blue for a legendary Ooze. It's a 3/3 with trample that reads, whenever a land card is put into your graveyard from anywhere, put a +1/+1 counter on him, remove 3 counters on Slogurk to return it to its owner's hand, and when Slogurk leaves the battlefield, return up to 3 target land cards from your graveyard to your hand. Now, I obviously thought, hey, you know, this is perfect. It's like if Gitrog had blue. So that's why Gitrog is obviously in the deck. Same thing with Titania, who also has her own deck tech. That will be in the end screen as well. Gitrog monster, if you don't already know, I believe it's the top spot Golgari commander ever, but I'm not quite sure on that. So Gitrog is 3 black-green for a 6/6 legendary frog horror with death touch. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice the Gitrog monster unless you sacrifice a land. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Whenever one or more land cards is put into the graveyard from anywhere, draw a card. So if you mill a land off the top of your library, you both put a +1/+1 counter on Slogurk and draw a card off of Gitrog if they're both on the field. Now Titania, Protector of Argoth, is 3 green-green for a legendary elemental that reads, when Titania enters the battlefield, return target land card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Whenever a land you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, create a 5/3 elemental green creature token. So these kind of all work together, lands going into graveyards and out of graveyards and everything of the sort. Now I did build heavily into Tormod's ability. I'll put him up here for you. It reads, whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. Contemplated buying a Amulet of Vigor just for this deck, but figured I don't have enough other decks to where I can swap it around to make it worth the $20 purchase. So let's get into some other parts of this deck. Obviously, if lands matter, then ramp matters, and we are heavy in the ramp in this deck. Cards like Terramorphic Expanse, Springbloom Druid, and Roiling Regrowth all fit the sacrificing lands theme as well from earlier. Terramorphic Expanse can sacrifice itself to find a basic land onto the battlefield tapped. Springbloom Druid is 2 and a green for a 1/1, where we can sacrifice a land as it enters. If we do, find 2 basics, put them on tapped. Roiling Regrowth is the exact same thing, but it is an instant speed card rather than a creature. Now we also have some cards that don't quite fit the sacrificing lands theme, but will still help us in the ramp game. So Growth Spiral, Terramorph, and Beneath the Sands are all good cards in this category. Growth Spiral, green and a blue, instant speed, draw a card, you may put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. Terramorph, 3 and a green for sorcery, find a basic land, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. That has rebound, so if we cast it from our hand, it exiles as we resolve, and then we cast it for free next turn. And Beneath the Sands is 2 and a green for sorcery, find a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. We can also cycle this away for 2 mana, which will discard a card and draw us a new one. To be able to have the cards leave our graveyard, we had to be able to put cards into it. So cards like Glowspore Shaman, Sultai Ascendancy, and Millikin will gladly help us out there. Glowspore Shaman is black and a green for a 3/1 Elf Shaman. When it enters the battlefield, put the top 3 cards of our library into our graveyard. We may put a land card from our graveyard on top of our library, which also will trigger Tormod's ability with cards leaving the graveyard, getting us a zombie token. Sultai Ascendancy, black, green, blue for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put any number of them into your graveyard and the rest on top in any order. And Millikin is 2 mana for an artifact construct, 0/1, that reads, tap, mill a card, add colorless. So this both is a creature, mills us from our library, which has a chance to be a land on top, and will ramp us all in 1 card. Now we have all these cards in our graveyard and all these lands and kinds of other things going in and out of graveyards and libraries and hands to where we need cards that will just let us move cards from our graveyard to other places. To get as many Tormod activations as we can. So Eccentric Farmer, Bag of Holding, and Boneyard Parlay are some of the better cards that I own that I decided to put in this deck. Eccentric Farmer is 2 and a green for a 2/3 human peasant. When he enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. Then we can return a land card from our graveyard to our hand, which is a card leaving the graveyard, which again triggers Tormod, making us a tapped zombie token. Bag of Holding is the most synergistic piece here. It's 1 mana for an artifact. Whenever you discard a card, exile that card from your graveyard. So if we happen to need to discard a bunch of cards, say we've drawn a bunch with Get Rog or anything of that sort, in a given turn, say we have 9 or 10, maybe even 11 cards in hand, we can discard at the end of turn. Those will go to graveyard and then get exiled with Bag of Holding, giving us 4 tapped zombies for our next turn off of Tormod. Now, Boneyard Parlay is 5 black for a sorcery, exile up to 5 target creature cards from graveyards. That's anybody's graveyard. An opponent separates those cards into 2 piles, put all cards from the pile of your choice onto the battlefield under your control, and the rest into their owner's graveyards. So they get exiled, which will trigger Tormod again, getting more and more zombies, but we also get potentially some really good creatures if we were able to remove them earlier in the game. Now, speaking of using our opponent's cards against them, another fun build around in this deck was Villainous Wealth, which is X black green blue for sorcery. Target opponent exiles the top X cards of his or her library. You may cast any number of non-land cards with converted mana cost X or less from among them without paying their mana costs. What better way to win a game than using our opponent's cards against them? Alright, that's going to do it for me. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Homebrew EDH. This was, after all, my 30th episode in this series. We've come quite a ways. As always, the deck list will be in the description with all the cards I did not include in this video. Constructive feedback and deck suggestions are welcome in the comments. And until I see you guys in the next one, take it easy and enjoy your day.